Good evening, everyone. My name is Judy McSwine. I will be the moderator tonight. Welcome to we'll have a wonderful forum with our 4 fine candidates. And I represent the League of Women Voters. We are very, very honored to do this public service because our mission is to work for better government. So this will be an honest and open forum. If you have any more questions during the time that we're asking questions, raise your hand and Irene Jacobs will collect them from you. Here are the rules. The candidates will each have 2 minutes for their opening statements. And we will start with Ms. Slattery and go down the line. Then the next question, when we start our questions, each of the candidates will have 1 minute to answer the same question, and we will stagger. So since Ms. Slattery started first, then, I'll try this name. Alahusas will start the questioning, and you will have 1 minute. Our timekeeper tonight is Delia Miller, and she will raise a flag, a sign, saying you have 1 minute, and then, but you won't do that for the questions. It'll be 30 seconds and then 15 seconds, and then stop. So I'm sure we will have an orderly and very informative candidates forum. So we'll start the opening statements with Mrs. Slattery. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Women League of Voters for sponsoring this event this evening, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming out as well.
Do you have a microphone?
Yes.
I think you should use it. Okay.
My name is Susan Michio Slattery, and I'm running for the Tarpon Springs City Commission, Seat 3. I have served previously as your commissioner from 2008 through 2013, and I was your vice mayor my last year of service. The board worked together to move Tarpon in a positive direction, one that preserved our heritage and prepared us for our future. I have a vision for what Tarpon will look like in the future. It won't happen overnight, and it will not happen without your help. I see a city with improved infrastructure. I see City Hall restored in order to preserve a part of our heritage. In the near future, the Mears extension to US 19 will be completed, and this will provide another emergency route to the coast. The Lowe's project is back on track, and a variety of businesses are opening. I see the city utilizing the economic development specialists to attract new industry and to grow our tax base. I see the revival of the sponge docks and the Tarpon Avenue Historic District as new businesses are opening. The growth of business and homes increase our tax base that allow us to provide services without increasing the tax rate. I see the city improving protection for our citizens with a new fire station, and I did get the firefighters' endorsement. I see continued development of a walkable community with more shade and benches. In fact, I would see Tarpon Springs of the future a shining city. I see a bright future, but only if we can continue to build on the foundation that was started when I served before. I'm running for election to the Tarpon Springs City Commission, Seat 3, and I need your help to make Tarpon's future bright. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Alahusas.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the city staff for providing this forum tonight. I'd like to take this opportunity to present to you my issues in this campaign. One of my main issues is needs for our senior citizens, transportation for seniors, older citizen center, and information center for seniors. Some of these needs I worked on for many years, some are new ideas, and as your mayor, I will work finally to resolve these issues. Next is to attract large job-generated business to Tarpon Springs that will create good jobs and tax revenue. By increasing the city revenue, we will stop using the savings to balance the budget and to reduce the property tax. That's money in our pocket. We need to offer incentives to attract these large businesses, and we need to create a business-friendly environment to keep them here once they get here. Another issue that I'm working on and talking to investors is to bring a hotel to the sponge docks, to enhance the tourism and to help our local economy. The needs of our families always is a principal issue. We need to have a neighborhood playground which will benefit both the young and old alike. Family recreation, a city boat ramp with parking on Anklo has been overdue. I look forward to answering your questions tonight, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Mr. DiDonato.
Hi, I'm Frank DiDonato. I'm running for the office of Mayor, Tarpon Springs. I'm starting my 40th year in this lovely city. I fell in love with it the first time I drove through. It was kind of by accident, but I think it was God's direction for me. I love this community. That's why I'm here before you again today. Some of you will remember that I was mayor from 1998 to 2004, and I was commissioner prior to that. During the years that I was privileged to serve as your mayor, we as a commission were able to accomplish a great deal, such as our public safety building. While I was on the commission, we built a new library. Those are things that are all paid for now and built extremely well. They're state of the art. Back in 2002, we started talking about a water treatment facility. We started that idea because we felt Tarpon needed its own independence in its own regulation of its drinking water. You now have probably the best drinking water available to you in Pinellas County. I'm proud of that fact. I also tell you that I've had 12 years to listen, to continue to work on different boards for the city, and I've listened to the people, and I've learned a great deal more than I knew 15, 12 years ago. I'm happy to bring that experience to you. Extreme measures to me need to be taken on our roads, the condition of many of our roads, and our sidewalks and some of the infrastructure along with that. We also need to have new ideas. For example, this is actually a new old idea, but I'd like to see a spur built from the Tarpon Trail through town to the beaches. And now with talking of a pool at the high school, we can bring that trail down there and assess the availability to our citizens. So those are just some of the ideas, one of the ideas that I have. I would appreciate your consideration and vote on March 15th for mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please hold your applause until we're done. Just thank you. Next, Mr. Kafalis, thank you.
Hello, I'm Tim Kafalis, and I first want to thank the League of Women Voters and the City of Tarpon Springs for organizing the first of several forums for the upcoming city election. I have affiliated myself with organizations that instill and utilize community values, service, faith, and perseverance. I've learned about the proud and unique history of Tarpon Springs, and I have worked to help charitable causes and will continue to do so. I believe in Tarpon Springs, and I have lived here approximately 30 years. I am proud of my heritage, and I believe I can help Tarpon Springs to balance the needs of families and businesses. I have a bachelor's degree in business management, a degree in accounting. I've served on St. Nicholas Parish Council. While there, I was the youth committee chairperson, served also many years as the Sunday school assistant to the Sunday school director.
Okay.
I'm a member of the Tarpon Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons, and officer of the AHEPA, American Hellenic Education Progressive Association, and a third generation AHEPA. We're a nonprofit, the largest Orthodox-based organization in the world. Tarpon Springs, I'm a Tarpon Springs Sister City Committee board member, member of the 2015 Shepherd Center Prayer Breakfast Committee, a member of the Tarpon Springs Area Historical Society. Why I'm running? The city is spending reserves in the last few years and currently uses reserves to balance the budget. I will not support a budget that uses reserves for anything other than emergencies. I believe that we need to be more proactive with all city resident-based boards. I believe all employees should receive the same pay raises as unionized employees so we can maintain a level of professionalism in all departments. I support the referendum to help our community hospital improve the ER, and I thank you for being here tonight and coming out in this cold weather. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. I've been asked to remind you to please speak into the microphones because there are people outside that but anyway, not everyone can hear you. So we want to hear every word, important word you say. So now we'll start the questions, and we'll start with Mr. Alahusas. Would you be willing to work with the Trust for Public Lands and have the city apply for Florida Community Trust Fund grants to purchase the Walmart property to be made into a park? So each of you will answer that question. We'll start with Mr. Alahusas.
The Walmart property is very important, and this is a very great place to have a recreation, a complex area. I will work with the state and federal level to make sure that we bring it to Tarpon Springs. Once we had the opportunity to bring it to Tarpon Springs, where the county it was going to purchase it and don't give it to the city of Tarpon Springs to use it as a sports complex. But at that time, it was denied by the mayor, who happened to be Mr. DiDonato, that he didn't accept it, and he did that without the knowledge of the city commissioner at the time, and that was direct violation of the charter. Yes, I will make whatever we can to make sure that the property comes to Tarpon Springs.
Thank you. Mr. DiDonato?
Yes. I happen to have the infamous letter right here. It was written 15 years ago. The commission at that time did establish that that was the largest commercial site available not only in Tarpon Springs, but the Pinellas County had also, the Pinellas Planning Council as well, had selected that as the largest developable commercial piece in our county. I wrote a letter based on the theory at that time. At that time, there wasn't a red light at Live Oak Street. So that meant that it was attainable on the Walmart site. In fact, years before I was mayor, the ABR insurance claim business was going to build 2 tower buildings there prior, and they already had approval for a traffic light at the time. That was prior to me ever serving in office. But that has always been established as a commercial site. Today, however, because we do have a Walmart, we do have a Lowe's coming in. We do have the new gun range that's going to bring in tax bases. I think that the use of that property would better serve as a park, and I would suggest that it be an eco-tourism type park where we have canoes and kayaks and things of that nature to make it available to our citizens. And thank you very much. I got the stop sign.
Thank you. Someone wanted in the audience just to ask me, where is the property? And it's what, north of, on the Anclote River, right?
It's on US 19, just on Anclote River.
Right, thank you. Next, Mr. Kafal.
Well, yes, I would support doing that, and I did when I ran last time for city commission and for county. I suggested that if elected, that I would try to get it for water education and a nature preserve. But unfortunately, I wasn't elected, and it still sits. But I would support using it for that and to seek grants to do that. It's unfortunate that we entered into a very adversarial situation with Walmart at that time. And it's my understanding that at the time it was zoned appropriately for them to build, and the zoning was changed subsequent to their purchase. But regardless, now I think that it would be a nice place to have a water education facility to help us learn how to conserve water in the area, and what we're all about is water. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Slattery?
Thank you. I would support that concept. I know it's come up in the past when I served previously, and I think the county's been asked about this issue. So far, nobody's willing to help us out with that. Hopefully we can, maybe the new board, who's ever gets elected, we can still continue to fight for it. I was one of the original people that fought to keep the Walmart off of that site so we can preserve it. And I'm very proud to say that that did happen. Thank you.
Okay, next question, and we'll start with Mr. DiDonato. What do you consider the pros and cons for changing the lease agreement at the Florida hospital?
The pros are pretty obvious. We're going to get a new and improved state-of-the-art emergency room. I hope none of you have had to go there, but it currently is smaller than it really should be and doesn't have some of the services that we would like to see provided. So that is the biggest pro for me. They're also putting, as you know, an emergency room or emergency care facility out on 19 in Palm Harbor. I think that further strengthens the position of the hospital. To that nature, I think it's a good situation. As far as cons, quite honestly, without a strong hospital, I think this community would suffer. At the time I came into office as mayor the first time, there was a crisis, and the hospital was suing the city, and the city was suing the hospital. We were able to negotiate and get that process working toward the benefit of our citizens. Today, it's one of the best hospitals in the area, so that expresses my feelings on the issue.
Next, Mr. Kafalis.
If you read my literature, you'll see that I support the hospital in their efforts with the ER. I believe that, having used it 5 separate times, I believe that we need to facilitate a better and more improved ER and to maintain that as a viable hospital. There are no communities in the United States that will survive without an effective hospital. It's one of the things. I used to sell real estate, and people look for hospitals, schools, and jobs. And we have to offer a better hospital and an improved hospital if we're going to keep doctors here, we're going to keep patients here. And as our population is aging, and that's a consideration for them. When they come here, they want to see what kind of facility we have. Also, I'd like to mention that there are some possible HIPAA situations that could arise if we don't. You're side by side with other patients, and I've been in there where I've heard what's going on with the patient next to me, and I really think that we need to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Slattery.
Thank you. I support our hospital, and I have always showed support for our hospital when I served previously. The hospital has greatly improved and really needs a new emergency room. I've spent many nights in there, and I can attest we do need a new emergency room. Bottom line, if the referendum that's coming up fails, it will show that it's a lack of support from our community, and we can't have a lack of support from our community. We need to support our local hospital. The Adventists have done a great job, and they've invested millions of dollars in our hospital, and we need to keep them here and give our residents some great health care.
Thank you. Mr. Alahousas.
Thank you. Yes, I am in support of that referendum. Only the people of Tarpon Springs can actually approve that through the referendum, but the people that we all going to benefit from the state-of-the-art emergency room, and especially the elderly. The least we can do is to give them that. And yes, I am 100% behind it.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will start with Mr. Kafalis, and more of a general question. What do you consider the most pressing problem facing the city?
Well, a major concern I have, it's hard to say there's one critical, they're all critical, but financial considerations, we're spending reserves. In 2012, we had $10.5 million in reserves. We've spent it down to about 8.5. Granted, it is over and above what we're required, but there's reasons it was left like that. Some of that was debt service in case we can't meet our debt service. Plus, it affects our ratings with lending. I think that's a major issue that the city has control of. I think sewers are an issue. Now that we've got a new water plant, we're going to have to address better treatment and getting everybody in the community. We have some 800 properties still on septic tank. Thank you.
Next, Ms. Slattery.
Thank you. We need to reduce the tax burden without shortchanging services.
Please talk into the microphone.
Sorry. The major issue on how to reduce the tax burden without shortchanging services, and we need to preserve our heritage by having responsible development and utilizing smart, responsible growth. We need to encourage greater community involvement, and we need to protect our environment.
Mr. Alahousas.
Thank you. We do have many unsolved issues that we need to resolve. issues the needs of our senior citizens to attract large businesses to Tarpon Springs, to create jobs, and generate revenue so we can reduce the property tax and to balance the budget without using the reserves. Also, we have needs of the families that we have to address as well. Bringing a a hotel to the sponge docks, that's going to help not only the tourism, but also is going to help our local economy. And also, we need to for family recreation, a boat ramp on Anclo River with parking. Like I said, it's been overdue.
Okay, thank you. Remember, this is the most pressing, right? So we'll have the last, right.
I'm glad you clarified that. I'm going to pick the one I think is the most, and that's roads and infrastructure. We've got some roads, for example, if any of you travel MLK before you get to the bayou, there's a pretty big dip there that's been there a long time. In fact, I was told the other day that there's probably at least 8 feet of asphalt in that hole. We need to fix the problems. As it's already been alluded, we have a new water treatment facility. We've got to start thinking about our pipelines, or we're going to have a lot of serious problems. We've got flooding that occurred in the big rains that we had just not long ago, and that can be addressed through our infrastructure and our road and sidewalk programs. So indeed, I believe that is the most pressing need.
Thank you. Now, this next question is very long, so listen carefully. The Constitution probably protects the right to post political signs as far in advance of an election as you want. The Constitution also protects the right to burn the flag. Neither of these rights, though, may be in good taste if taken advantage of. Would you be willing to take a personal vow to keep our city beautiful and clean and limit your campaign signs, say, to a more reasonable time of 3 or 4 months, as opposed to some that now post 9 months prior to this election? And so we start with Ms. Slattery.
Thank you. Yes, I would vow to go to Tallahassee and ask if we need to change the rules. I didn't put my signs out. I haven't had them out. I just started putting them out. I didn't want to clutter the community during the Christmas holidays. I just think that's wrong. So my signs are just going out now. Signs don't win elections. People win elections. And I would say I would no more than 30 to 90 days prior to election, that sign should be able to go out in the communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alahouzes?
Thank you. Having signs throughout the city is really an expression, and as you said before, this is it's a federal issue, and we can make any regulations here in Tarpon Springs, but that's not going to help any. If it's an agreement with everyone, then everybody should abide by that.
Thank you.
Yes, I have actually looked into this issue. Other cities do have ordinances that define when a sign can go up during an election and when it should come down. Tarpon has clarified in their ordinances that when it's supposed to come down. It does not, however, clarify when they can go up. If elected, I would propose that, as I said 40 years ago, one of the attractions to me were this city's beauty. And I apologize for some of my signs. I've never had so many signs up in my life. And, you know, I think that after Epiphany, we should consider putting up signs. I tell you that because the ballots, mail ballots, now come out 45 days prior to the election. That will be the end of this month. They will be out, coming out soon. So I think would suggest that we do it sometime in January, and I would applaud that ordinance.
Next, Mr. Kafalis.
I personally chose to keep mine down until after the holidays, other than on Epiphany Day. I had 2 up, and they said, "Welcome to Epiphany City," with my name on them. I'm proud of our city. I'm proud also that we have the right to do that, to put our signs up, and not just signs. And the last time I ran for office, I had a letter from my homeowners association telling me I could not put signs up at all. And when I challenged they're requesting that I take them down. I pointed out other signs that are up that are, so it's difficult. Where do you start and where do you end? What signs should be up? By all rights, my sign for my alarm system is in violation. And I just think that we as a city have chosen not to force people to do how we want, let them do how they are. We have a very creative city and very creative people, and with the upcoming national elections, it's going to be difficult to even find space for signs.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, and we start with Mr. Alahuzis. How do you create new entitlements for seniors and reduce the millage rate?
Thank you. The older needs, we have several issues. One is the transportation. The other one is to open a senior center and information center. The transportation, this is something that we already been paying taxes for it. If you look at the real estate tax statement that we get once a year, you're going to see that the Suncoast Transit Authority will pay 0.73 millage, and this money goes to the county, collected by the PSTA, which is the Pinellas Transit Authority. We need to take advantage of that and bring transportation to Tarpon Springs for everyone, and especially for the seniors. In regards to the center, we already have the community center that can be used for that purpose. For information center, that probably is going to take a half employee, or you can actually run it for volunteers. The seniors, they have offered so much to us, and it's time for us to offer something for them as well. We must give them the independence and their dignity back. Thank you.
But remember, the question also says, and reduce the millage rate.
Can I answer that?
Next.
No.
Thank you. Next.
I believe in helping seniors. I am a chiropractor. Some of you know, half my practice is probably Medicare. I'm happy to actually, I'm one of those people now myself. Certainly, I know some seniors need help, and I will personally do everything we possibly can, but we would need to do that, in my opinion, through a union of the county, the state, and even the federal government, and reestablish programs such as the neighborhood senior citizen facility that we used to be at the old rec hall on Walton. That worked very successfully. I even taught in that program and lectured on nutrition. I would like to see that come back. As to the millage rate, we are number 4, I believe, in the county currently. We've been at that particular level now for several years. We're winding down, and things are getting a little better. So I think we do need to examine it, but we need to do it carefully, because we want to provide the services to our citizens. If we do it premature, the services are going to suffer. So if we get together and plan, we can work out to see when is the right time and if it is the right time.
Thank you.
Ready? Okay. Well, first of all, I think we can start looking at cutting some of the millage rate. I also think we have issues with transportation. We're spending 12.5 on culture and recreation of our expenditures, and 5.4 on transportation. But if you look at 2014 and 2015, we had an income increase in our property tax revenue of $629,000, and in 2015 to 16, $195,000. So it's combined almost $1 million, $825,000. We've had an increase without having a millage increase, but because property values have gone up. I think we can do more with less. I think there are some things that need to be changed, and I think that, again, continuing to use reserves to balance the budget is inappropriate. We're spending some $316,000 this year to do that, and $307,000 last year to do that.
Thank you.
It's time we stop.
Mrs. Slattery,
Thank
that
you.
question.
Thank you. First, I just want to touch on the millage rate, and not sure if that's smart to lower the millage rate. At this point, it's been where it's at for 6-7 years now, and we are a full-service city, and we need to compare ourselves to other full-service cities. And we need to compare apples to apples, and I don't think that some of us are doing that. We are number 4 out of 5 of full-service cities, and I believe that Clearwater other than Clearwater, we were the only ones that haven't raised taxes in the past year. And, you know, if we want to continue to talk about lowering the millage rate, then the only way that we might possibly be able to do it is bring more tax revenue into the city and utilize our economic development specialists to do that. And when it comes to seniors, if we could find a way to help them with transportation, I think that would be fabulous, and maybe use something through the Parks and Recs Department as well. I know they have some programs for seniors, and I think that if we can continue to utilize them, that would help. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the next question, and we'll start with Mr. DiDonato. What are your views on dredging the Anclote River? It has been almost 20 years since last dredged.
It's a major channel. It's a commercial channel as well as a recreational channel. Very definitely, I'm behind the dredging. Not only that, I'm puzzled as to why they call it maintenance dredging. The word maintenance to me means that it would be ongoing as needed. Unfortunately, the Army Corps of Engineers now is currently underfunded, and that is the biggest problem with bringing these projects forward. The permitting process is detailed, but if the money's not there, it doesn't get fulfilled. So we need to work with our local congressmen and our senators and get them to long-term budget these things within the Army Corps of Engineers budget. It's money, people, that's the biggest reason why it's taken so long. But anything that uses the word maintenance, we all maintain our homes. We paint it periodically when we need it. The basin needs to be taken care of in that manner, so absolutely.
Mr. Kafalis?
Yes, I support doing that in the areas that are not environmentally sensitive. There are some areas, I believe, that are. Tarpon is a safe port in times of storm. If you look back to our heritage, during World War II, the boats were sent out to watch for U-boats. We have to keep the port open. It may be at some time that you never know with what we're facing in our world today. And yes, we have a viable, what is a seaport, and we need to keep it viable, and we need to keep it open. It's my understanding that Congressman Bilirakis and our senators have sent letters of support, so we'll just see what happens from that. It's not something we can do without their support and without the support of our federal government, and it would just be prohibitive for us to even consider doing it without their support. Thank you.
Mrs. Slattery?
Thank you. We should look around us. We are in a waterfront community, and we need to provide easier access to our waterways. I would support dredging of the Anclote River, and we have gotten some letters from Congressman Bilirakis, and hopefully, you know, if elected, I would continue to fight for this because it's very important. We have a working waterfront. We need to keep our waterway open. Thank you.
Mr. Alahousas?
Thank you. As your mayor, I will be working with the advisory board, the city staff, the BOC, the Corps of Engineers, the state officials, and the federal officials to bring funds to Tarpon Springs to make the dredging a reality. But since I have time, I want to talk about the property tax. The millage we have now is 5.45. We need to reduce that. The only way we can reduce that is by creating revenue to Tarpon Springs. We must attract large business to Tarpon Springs, and we're going to do that only by offering incentives to the large business to come. And also, we got to have a business-friendly environment so the business will, once they come, they stay here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question would start with Mr. Kafalis. What are you most proud of in your political career?
I have kept honest, and this is my third time running. I've not broken any campaign laws. I have kept honest, and I have not taken inappropriate contributions. In fact, I've refused some from some people, and I've limited my vulnerability to certain organizations by not accepting those. I feel that we have to have unbiased and unpurchased candidates running for office. And as you know, Tarpon Springs is a nonpartisan city election. We're not allowed to discuss party, and I've maintained that forever since I've ran. This is my third time of running, and I think that we need to look to maintaining that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Slattery, would you answer that question?
Sure, thank you. I worked with the commission during the Great Recession to maintain services while reducing the tax burden, and we kept our police and fire department local, and I'm very proud of that. I voted to keep Walmart off the Anclote River. I supported putting fluoride into our water. I supported the water treatment plant, reorganization of City Hall.
What are you most proud of?
I am most proud of keeping Walmart off the Anclote River. Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't,
Worked very
can you
hard.
pull your microphone closer to you? Would that be
Try.
easier for you? Thanks.
I could probably talk louder.
Mr.
without the microphone.
Alahousas, would you answer that question?
Yes. On the serving the people of Tarpon Springs, I'm very proud that I initiated and we successfully implemented the Budget Advisory Committee to give the people of Tarpon Springs the access to our city budget and provide the BOC with recommendations where the money will be spent. On the private sector, I'm also very, very proud that I am one of the founding board members of the most successful public charter school in Pinellas County to give a good education to the kids. And I guess that's it for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
I like everyone else, I have many things I'm proud of. If I need to pick one thing, I would tell you it's my assistance with youth in this city. When I moved here, and even when I was first elected, we had 2 baseball, softball fields, and they were used for both. And we had 1 Little League field. We didn't have any facilities for soccer or football. And I'm proud to say that I was part of the completion of Sister Field. We gave kids a place to play the game and keep them off the streets. I'm also proud to say I was part of the acquisition of the land for the soccer and football fields out off of Jasmine Road. That is now one of the best parks available to our kids in the state. So if I had to pick one thing, it's serving our youth, but it was serving all of Tarpon that I'm very proud of.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, we start with Ms. Slattery. St. Petersburg College is an underutilized asset for our city. How could we support and enhance our partnership with St. Pete College here in Tarpon Springs?
That's a good question.
It is a good one.
That is a great campus. Actually, I went to Tarpon, to that campus many, many years ago. We need to support it more, and there's some way if maybe we could work with maybe the economic development specialist, and she can do some, I don't know what the word would be, but we could attract people to more over there, you know, over to the campus, do some advertising, help with advertising more within the city, on our website, on our, there's so many ways that we could get people to notice that campus. That is now a 4-year accredited college, so you can get your 4-year degree there. And I don't know if it's that well known, but it's something that we really should work on as a city to promote the St. Pete College better.
Thank you. Mr. Halahousas?
Thank you. I'm already involved with the St. Petersburg College. I work with them on international studies to have students from here, from St. Petersburg College, to go overseas to study. In addition to that, I think we need to start another program to where it can actually assist our local businesses, where they can learn different techniques and the new technology that will be very useful to our local businesses and to our local economy.
Thank you. Mr. DiGiornato?
I too feel that it is an unused need for the city to develop, and I would suggest that we do appoint an advisory committee that would work with the college and vice versa, the college do the same thing, so that we can sit down and talk about not only how we can help them, but how they can help us as well. I have always found the college to be very, very cooperative to our citizens, and certainly to me if I ever had questions. So I would encourage us to meet and go in a direction that was good for both of us.
Thank you. Mr. Kafalis?
Yes. Last week at the Sister Cities annual meeting, the provost spoke about just what you're talking about, and they're expanding some of the programs, And as Mr. Alahuza spoke about, they are going to try to get some more highly technical programs that we can utilize here to make it more four-year degree based here, because most of the programs now, as he asserted, were you have to go elsewhere to complete in other parts of the county. I also feel that when we're discussing transportation, I live near the college, and I see the kids getting off at the bus at US 19 and some coming up, walking up Klosterman Road, rain, whatever. While they're dedicated, I think we need to find a way to have better transportation to help get them there, and I think that too will bring people to go there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm getting so many questions. Okay, I guess you all have answered that. So we start with Mr. Alahouzes, and here's the question. All of you maintain a position of a balanced budget. When a budget gets skinny, would you continue to support a cost of living raise and raises to employees?
Yes, thank you. That's a very good question. Yes, we are cutting the budget down, but we must still increase our revenue to the city of Tarpon Springs. Yes, the employees of our city is an asset to the city, and we must provide them not only with good wages, but also got to provide them with the right tools and programs, computer programs, in order to do their job correctly and better, more efficient, to better serve our city of Tarpon Springs. We must pay them well, not only to be able to attract and to keep the talent here in Tarpon Springs.
Thank you. Mr. DiDonato?
Earlier, I stated that we needed to maybe look at our millage rate, but I also told you we needed to study it, make sure that or if it is the right time to do it and how to do it. One of the ways you do that is certainly increasing our efficiency, and the other way you would do that is to increase our tax base. And we have an economic development director currently that I believe is doing a good job. We started that program years ago when I was mayor, and I would work through her and assist in every way the commission to get other major anchors for our city that would be of needs. For example, maybe a Cracker Barrel on US 19. Something along those lines where we can continue to grow and service our citizens and also increase our tax base.
Thank you. Mr. Kafalas?
Well, again, referring to my literature, I believe all employees should receive the same pay raises annually as unionized employees so we can maintain a level of professionalism in all departments. It's irrelevant if we don't have professional people here. We can lower the taxes, raise the taxes, whatever you want to do with the taxes. We're going to chase people away. We're going to chase businesses away. It's very difficult to do business with the city, and we need to raise the level of professionalism and to maintain a level of professionalism if we are going to attract businesses to come here. Yes, we need to increase our revenue. We do need to cut our taxes. I think that's detrimental, having this high tax rate as we have. As fast as we get it in, we're spending it, and then some. As I said before, we have some $825,000 in the last 2 years that came in over and above. This is just over and above the $20 or so million in the ad valorem taxes, and about $500,000 this year will be paid in other taxes. So I think it's important that we do move forward and try to I'm being stopped, so I better just stop right there.
Thank you. I can't see when she puts this.
Yeah, she's.
So good for you.
I'm going to look the other way next time.
Mrs. Slattery?
Thank you. The city staff here went many years without a pay raise, and that has been reviewed in the past when I was on commission. I would support them getting a pay raise every year, at least a cost of living raise. They deserve it. They work very hard. They are a family here in this community. We keep losing personnel because of the low wages that they do have. And like everyone's pointed out, the one way that we can make sure that we can afford to give them a raise every year is we need to utilize our economic development specialist so she can attract new businesses to come into the area and help with our tax base. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DiDonato, you go first with this question. What do you think are the most important needs for our families in the community?
programs on parenting. I mean that seriously. When I think of it the way I think of it, it's a shame. And if I could do anything as mayor, it would be to have established programs to teach our young people how to parent. And I don't mean that to insult anyone, but the kids coming out today are not like the kids coming out when I was born. I grew up yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Some people may think that that's not a necessary thing, and maybe it's not. I'm not here to argue. But what it does do is it teaches children the respect value. It also lets them have respect for themselves by respecting others. So if I had to pick, that would be the greatest family thing I believe we could do. Certainly you want to raise the poverty level and fund adequately and keep tax programs lowered for the needy. But if I had to pick one thing, it would be parenting.
Thank you. Mr. Kafalis?
Well, Tarpon Springs has one of the top 5 areas in the county for being economically distressed. There's one part of Tarpon that is economically distressed and has been identified, yet little is done every year. I keep mentioning this when I ran before and when I ran for the county commission for this. I think that it's sad. As a member of the AHEPA, we've partnered with the Shepherd Center on doing fundraising for them, and we see what goes on, and we see the amount of people that they serve, some 4,800, I believe, a day that they help feed.
Wow.
It's amazing how many people go hungry in our community, and hunger leads to other issues. You can't study, you can't be productive if you're hungry, and I think we need to work more with that and to overcome that in our city. We can do it.
Thank you. Mrs. Slattery?
Oh, thank you. Well, maybe, I was thinking maybe we could have some programs with the Parks and Rec Department that could bring in some of our families. They could, pick them up from their homes and transport them to the Parks and Rec Department and have some training for the families there. Or we could partner up with our local hospital, and I'm sure they have many programs that could help our families in the community. We have right now so many families that people are not aware of that are living out of their cars. I mean, our students from our middle school, elementary school, and high school, they're living out of their cars with their families, and it's a very sad situation, and the numbers grow and grow every year. We have Peace for Tarpon that is available to the community that can help with families as well. So I would support anything that we could do to help families, especially our children in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kafal?
Chris.
Alahouzes, right.
The needs of our families is always a principal issue. I will support and I will continue to support our youth programs and give the ability to the youngsters, to our young people, to be able to play football, baseball, and the other sports, soccer, and many other sports. Right now, many of them can't afford to do that. I think the city needs to be involved with the sports programs. We also must have neighborhood playgrounds for the kids to be able to play, because when they get off school, it's usually like at 2 or 3 o'clock. The parents don't get off work till 4. They have 2 to 3 hours. They have nothing to do. So we must provide them with a recreation near the neighborhood so the kids will stay occupied. And for family recreation, a city boat ramp with parking. This is something that we have more waterfront in the city of Tarpon Springs than any other city, and yet we have no place for the people to launch the boats. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question, we'll start with Mr. Kafalis. I don't quite understand this. Maybe you do. Will you consider a review of the residential building codes so they accommodate new construction but do not adversely affect established neighborhoods and the character thereof? Is that a viable issue in Tarpon Springs?
I could see that being in some areas. Being involved with the Historical Society, there are some historical homes that have been, let's say, destroyed by some of the things they've done. We have a historical district, and we have addressed that there are established neighborhood goals that we should have and materials that are supposed to be used and appearance, what it should look like. I think that we also do have building codes that have to go by national standards for the southern states. And it's difficult to put both of them together, but it's not impossible. And while I do believe we need to have a little leeway with things, I think that we also have done some things in the past that we shouldn't have let happen, and we need to look to that in the future. As far as aesthetics, it's difficult to determine who's right and who's wrong in the color somebody paints their house or something like that.
Thank you. Ms. Slattery?
Thank you. Yes, I would consider reviewing the codes. We do have historic districts within the community, and some beautiful historic homes. I know it's come up on the Historic Preservation Board. There's some major issues that have come up recently about what materials can be used and can't be used. So we do want to keep the uniqueness of our town, and we want to preserve the heritage by having responsible development utilizing smart growth principles.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Alahouzes?
Thank you. Currently, I'm serving on a Board of Adjustments, and we found that many of those codes, they are outdated, and we need to take a look and see what codes we need to take, to bring up to date in order for us not only to preserve our heritage, but also to make easier for our customers, for our citizens to be able to build and to preserve their homes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. DiDonato?
Yes, I think that there should be an ongoing process within the city that looks at its codes, because many of them are outdated. Things change. We're also a lot of restrictions put on us by the federal building codes as well, and the state building codes. But there are aesthetic things that we could consider much more than maybe we do in neighborhoods today. Certainly anything in the historic district, and maybe even enlarging that somewhat, should be looked at. But again, we need to do that in cooperation with the citizens of Tarpon Springs.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to the next question. And it starts with Mrs. Slattery. How will you support our fire and police force?
Well, I support our fire and police force. Actually, I've gotten the firefighters endorsement this year. We have one of the best firefighters and police officers that there are in the county. And I mean, Tarpon Springs has the best. Our police department meet the professional standards of the best police forces in the nation. And no one in the county could actually, I could say, could do a better job. Very proud of what they do. I will support any ideas they have. I will look at their budget every year. I will work with the unions if need be. But again, some here might want to disband or talk about disbanding our police and fire departments. I say that is one of the worst things that we could ever do locally here in Tarpon Springs.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Alahouzes?
Thank you. The main responsibility for the elected officials is service, safety, service, and the quality of life to the citizens. In order for us to have that safety, we must have a good fire department and a good police department. So we must provide them with qualified personnel, the right equipment, good training, and well-paid personnel in order for them to be able to do their job and be effective. I support both departments, and I think they're doing a great job, and I'm very proud of both departments, fire and police.
Thank you. Mr. DiDonato?
I have demonstrated in the past as mayor, and I certainly feel compassionate about it now. Without our police and fire departments, Tarpon wouldn't be as unique as it is. I have people that I know personally and respect that are working for both departments. When I came into office as mayor, the turnover rate at that time in the fire department alone was 32%, which is scary high, especially when you consider the fact that it cost at that time close to $20,000 to train these firefighters who would come here for 1 year, get their experience, and leave and go into multiple other cities in this area at a higher salary. So absolutely, I complained then, and we increased it, And I think we need to work closely with our police and fire departments and give them the respect and the pay that they deserve.
Mr. Kavafis?
Well, first of all, again, on my literature, I endorse and support the fire department, and I fought to help keep the funding in the budget for the new station north of the Anclote River when it was suggested to take the funding out and use it for, divert it to other things. I also support the police department, believe we need our police department to be local and state-of-the-art in order to maintain a higher level of professionalism and accountability. As far as endorsements, I declined to meet with any of the fire or police. The police have never contacted me, but the fire contacted me, and I declined because I didn't feel it was something that we should be seeking endorsements from various political action committees. And I support them, and I think that we need to have it all local. And I'm very proud of our fire department and our police department. And I think that we do have a higher level of professionalism. And as far as the money, the cost of firemen, that's still a problem in talking with the fire chief, and that we don't have some of the teams that they want to be on as firemen. So we do train, and they do still kind of leave
Thank
us.
you. Okay, the next question, we start with Mr. Alahousas. The infrastructure in our city desperately needs important improvements, both with the septic/sewer system and our city roads. Why can't the penny for Pinellas be used for this, and what will you do to move this forward?
Thank you. At this time, we have 800 houses in Tarpon Springs still on septic tank because we do not have the infrastructure in order for those houses to be connected to. This is something that we must use, depending for Pinellas, also getting funds from the state in order to be able to build that. In addition to that, we must provide an assistance, a financial assistance, by getting help from the state level to help the residents to be able to connect into the infrastructure. Penny for Pinellas, it was designed to be used for infrastructure, for roads, and for sewer, and also for drainage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. DiGiordano?
I would support that, and I believe the city over the past has used some penny for Pinellas money for infrastructure. We also have the enterprise fund that has to be used basically for new infrastructure that we can look at, but the 800 septic tank need is been around too long in the city, and we do need to develop a program that will progress gradually to service our citizens and protect our environment, and also some kind of plan to help the individual homes be able to afford the connection process. In some cases, it can be quite expensive. In others, it's not too bad. But we need to develop that. It's actually happened in Tarpon Springs prior, and it needs to be planned and proceeded forward.
Thank you. Mr. Fallis?
Yes, and when I looked into this many years ago, it's hard to even find out which homes and which businesses are on septic in Tarpon. You have to almost go to the county for their records, because if they don't show it on records in the city of who doesn't have septic. They go strictly by the water bill. So if you just get water and don't pay sewer, that means you're on septic. But they couldn't at that time, even in 2013, tell me who those homes were, and I had to go to the county, which is just unheard of. We have homes that are along the water that need to be taken off septic, and there's sewer lines not too far. And I've talked to some of the homeowners, and they said, we would love to. We don't like having our homes on septic. But I think that we need to use pennies for Pinellas for that, and we need to realize that that's what it was originally for, was infrastructure, and we've expanded it out to make everything infrastructure, and we're going to end up like St. Petersburg with major sewer problems if we don't do something.
Thank you. Mrs. Slattery?
Thank you. I totally agree. We need to work on our infrastructure. And I know I have to say it has improved in the last 6 years. There's been a lot of work done in our community. I just drive around after some of our major storms, and the flooding has gotten so much better. We need to work on hooking everybody up to sewer. We started a project over on Lake Tarpon, and I believe all of that area is done now on the other side of 19. So now I believe that we need to start back over here in this area and start getting people hooked up to the sewer, back onto sewers, and get everybody off of
Septic.
septic. Thank you.
Okay, next question is, and we'll start with Mr. DiDonato. Historic Tarpon Springs, the Greek heritage and historic districts are so important to the tourism here. With pressure from development and growth, how can you protect and govern to make sure we do not lose these strategic elements of our community? And we start with Mr. DiDonato.
I feel we must do everything within our power on the commission, but certainly everyone in the city, to protect our historic districts and our Greek heritage. I'm Italian, but I was attracted, as one of the attractions for me was the Greek heritage here and how the Greeks pride and had events, and I respect that they taught their children both languages. It's just vital to our community for tourism. And if we don't protect that, then we better figure out a different mode, because we're going to be in a lot of trouble as far as how to attract and make our community grow. So I fought to protect it in the past, and I will continue to do that in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Kafalis?
Well, I think it's, some of that has already been mandated, and I think that the historic areas of Tarpon Springs will always be that way, and I think that the people that are there understand best what it takes to make it a thriving, let's say, Greek ethnic community to bring business in with restaurants and the success of the Sponge Docks area, and with they're constantly improving their products and coming out with additional products that are relevant to the Greek culture. I've been to Mykonos, I've been to Rhodes, and many of those places have similar shops, but not as ethnic as what we have in
Right.
Tarpon, and they're right in the heart of Greece.
Thank you. Mrs. Slattery?
Thank you. Well, we have a very unique and diverse heritage here with the Sponge Docks and the downtown area, and I would support keeping them unique as much as we can. This is a tourist community, and this is where most of our money comes from during the year, is from tourists coming to visit us. So we need to make sure that we take care of our Sponge Docks and our downtown historic area.
Thank you. Mr. Alahouzes?
Thank you. It's very, very important that we preserve our history here in Tarpon Springs. We can enhance what we already have. Our local economy is dependent on that. That's what brings tourists to Tarpon Springs. This is why we created a program in Tarpon Springs to give grants 50% matching to help the store owners to beautify their storefronts, because we believe this is very, very important to maintain our heritage and to bring more tourists down here to Tarpon Springs for our local economy.
Thank you. Okay. So we're done with that. Everybody's done with that one, right? So now we will start with Mr. Kafalis. Do I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Do you support the completion of Mears Boulevard?
Absolutely. We were promised that that would be put through on the development. First of all, it's not going to be easy. I understand that. There's some engineering. I've heard the city manager speak on this, and there are some engineering difficulties with that. But I think that we made a promise to put that through there, and I think we have a traffic problem that needs to be addressed from Klosterman Road to downtown Tarpon Springs, and it is chasing people away from coming to our downtown in many instances, and this would help alleviate some of the traffic that doesn't need to be in the downtown area that could work its way back towards Belcher and towards US 19. And I think that that's something that we need to desperately push to get through. And it was promised to us by developers, and it needs to be done.
Thank you. Mrs. Slattery?
Thank you. Yes, it was promised to us by some developers. There were some hiccups along the way, but it looks like this project will continue shortly. And what will happen is the MERS will open up from the coast to US 19, and this will provide a new emergency route for us in any type of storms or anything. So I support this, fully support this, and I see the project starting shortly.
Thank you. Mr. Alahouzes?
Thank you. The completion of Mears Boulevard is very important. Not only will deviate traffic from Martin Luther King and Tarpon Avenue, but it's also an evacuation route. So it's very important that we complete that. At this time, it's under negotiations with Mears Town Center for them to complete the section that it needs to be done. And as you, Mayor, I will work very close with the city manager and the BOC to bring this project to completion.
Thank you.
Yes. As has already been said, that the developer is still planning to move forward with that project. Many of you remember that Live Oak used to be closed off. Now it's been put through. And I would tell you that most anybody that goes to the sponge docks or has a business at the sponge docks have seen much relief to their area because of the opening of Live Oak. Plus, it's another escape route from town. And so I think Mears is very, very important to offer the same thing to the residents on the south end, as well as our merchants and shops. So absolutely, and if the developer fails again, then we should look through a penny for Pinellas perhaps. If it's coming up for renewal in 2017, if it is renewed, then we can allow projects like that to be funded by that process as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we start with Mrs. Slattery. And what is your position on the hospital referendum? What is the hospital referendum?
Oh, are you asking me what it is? Or
Yeah.
is that part of, there's something we'll be voting on that will be put on the ballot pertaining to the hospital.
I'm just
election.
asking for my personal.
Oh, okay, yeah, so at this point, it's a referendum on local support for the hospital. The hospital has greatly improved and needs a new emergency very badly. Bottom line at this point, like I said earlier, if the referendum fails, the hospital will consider a lack of support from our local residents, and that won't be good for the hospital or for the city. The Adventists, since they've come in, have invested millions of dollars to our hospital and really turned it around. I personally support the hospital, and I only hope that all of our citizens vote on the referendum, vote yes on the referendum.
Thank you. Mr. Alahouzes?
Yes, I am a big supporter of the hospital. Only the people of Tarpon Springs are going to approve the referendum, but we all going to benefit from the state-of-the-art emergency room for the hospital, and especially the elderly. And you asked a question earlier, what it consists is, currently the contract is $335,000 a year plus 2% annual increase. What the hospital is asking is to reduce it to $300,000 a year with no annual increase. This is a small investment for our hospital, and I would like to tell our citizens that the hospital is belong to Tarpon Springs. It's a city-owned hospital, and we're going to invest some money in order to have the benefit of a state-of-the-art emergency room.
Thank you. Mr. DiDonato?
Yes. I think by a reduction and doing away with the 2% increase, which is basically what they're asking you to do, is a good idea for both our community and for our hospital. It has proven itself. The Adventists have done a wonderful job. As I told you before, back in 1998, they were just a fraction of an inch close to closing that hospital. A lot of people do not realize that. And there were the people on the commission that fought to save that hospital and settle the arguments, and that's what we did. They've been given the opportunity now, the Adventists, and they've produced. They have done a tremendous job for us. So I think giving up that little bit, and we're still going to get rent or lease payments out of them. Uniquely, when we looked at this issue, and everybody's looked at it, I've looked at it, we can't find another situation in the state of Florida, even the South, in the south of the country, where there's a city and a hospital that work together. So by all means, we should support it.
Thank you. Mr. Cavallo?
Again, in my literature, I support the referendum to help our community hospital improve the ER, first of all. We have to have a viable hospital. It has to have an appropriate emergency room, as well as we have to do something to encourage doctors to want to perform their services there. I stayed till 11:30 the night in this room when we were discussing that, and it almost was not going to be put up for referendum. I was the only person that got up and spoke in favor. Nobody else even stayed other than myself, the president of the hospital, and I believe Charles Samarkis from the foundation to speak in favor of it. It almost failed that night with the city commission. There was not much support to do this. It's important that we have a successful hospital and that we have a viable hospital. My wife's a nurse, been a nurse for 35 years, and I hear the stories and the nightmares of what can happen, and we need a hospital right here, and we have it. We need to support it.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll start with Mr. Alahousas for the next question, and we're winding down. Do you support a public arts program?
Yes, I do. This is very, very important. Our committee is doing an excellent job identifying areas where we can place art to beautify our city. And we already have funding available. They are working on several projects, including a project to have bicycle racks throughout the city, and they're working to identify different art options for the downtown area as well. I'm in favor for it.
Thank you. Mr. DiDonato?
Yes, I do support it. Again, I think our uniqueness is needed of the art and the public art as well. We do have some. I think we should certainly benefit in the future from more. I think it's educational for our children. It's soothing. The statue down at Craig Park, I don't know how many of you had a chance to go by that, but it's beautiful. It kind of carries you away and it lets you enjoy the serenity of the sea. So by all means, we should have more of that in Tarpon.
Thank you. Mr. Cafalas?
Absolutely. If you look back at the history of some of the artists that have flourished here, we have Innes, Mr. Stills is from here. We have other people that come here specifically for the beauty and the environment that is pro-art. I supported and tried to get the lot next to on Tarpon Avenue given to the arts to build like an open-air gallery or a courtyard there where different art could be done. That's on Tarpon Avenue next to the Acropolis Meat Market, and it was up for sale and it failed. Now it's up for sale again, and I still would like that to be a artist-based facility, open air. It would tie Court Street together to Tarpon Avenue. It would be wonderful for tying together, having functions there, events, and other things where people could walk back and forth between the two directly. It would be a nice place to attract people to the downtown.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, now we go to Ms. Slattery.
Thank you. I support arts in our community. This committee that's come together, the art committee, they have been working so hard to get together and to get this evolved. And I'll tell you, art in our community would be absolutely beautiful. I'd love to see so much more of it. I know they have some big plans. Like I said, it's taken a while for them to come together. It takes money. And if you look at some of the other cities like Austin, Texas, they have art all through their community. Absolutely beautiful. Just Google it. And I did that when they came to the board when I was previously served. And it just really beautifies our town. I think it's a fabulous idea. We have so many artists from our community that we should be very proud of. And I hopefully we can use some of our local artists to create some of the artwork that they want to put out in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Alahousas, did you answer that question? No.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, now I believe this will be the last question. What efforts, and we start with Mr. Kafalis. What efforts or actions would you take to increase our maritime/fishing industry?
We have that's a difficult question because
Right.
we've got mostly state and federal laws that we have to deal with. Very few city ordinances that we'd have to consider with that. There is an issue. I've listened to some of the discussions on fishing. The restrictions have been so broad-based that it's difficult for fishermen to make a living, commercial fishermen. It's difficult for sport fishermen to get out and utilize the seasons to catch fish. They have difficult, the way they've divided up, it's hard for you to figure out where you're supposed to be to fish for what. It's very awkward. You can get arrested if you come back with the wrong fish, even though you think that you've got a fish that's in season. And I think that we need to work closer with the federal and state governments. But I think that that's really something we're going to have to try to handle in conjunction with them.
Thank you. Mrs. Slattery?
Thank you. Actually, I am a fisherman, and it's not the city that makes the rules and regulations. We have to follow Fish and Wildlife. So, yes, there are certain times of the years that you can keep the fish that you catch, and sometimes you can't. The crab traps are out there right now, and there's only so many traps you're limited to per person per boat. Make sure you have an updated license. We are a waterfront community, so I would always support anything that has to do with fishing, boating, but keeping everything safe on our waterways. And I'll tell you, I fought for when I served previously is on the Anclote River, lowering the speed on the river because it is so dangerous. And it did pass. They passed some of the river, but not all of it, but it did pass. And you know, we need to make sure that we're safe boating. There's safe boating out there. There's a lot of reckless people that don't know what they're doing, and we could offer some safe boating classes in our community. I think that's a start.
Thank you.
We do that.
Mr. Alhusis?
Thank you. The fishing is controlled by the state, and I will be working with the local fishermen, the commercial and the
Recreational. And the recreational.
and the recreation fishermen to identify what issues do they have, and I will work with the state representatives, the senator as well as the state representative. They already endorsed me, both of them endorsed me, and I have a very good working relationship with them in order to get things done with them. We have one of the few working ports in Tarpon Springs, and fishing is very important that we maintain it so the fishermen be able to make a good living.
Thank you. Mr. DiGiordano?
I too consider it very much of a value to our community. We are, as has been said, a waterfront community. We do need to be involved as much as we can, but primarily it would have to be through maybe a lobbying effort where we actually worked with our state reps and our state senators, because it is controlled more by the state and the federal government. The city has very little, unfortunately, say about its waters, but by all means, we should support it, and I would welcome the communication. I have in the past, enjoyed good relationships with our representatives and senators, and I'm sure that we can sit down and talk to them and ask for their help.
Thank you. Well, that ends our questions, and I thank the audience for supplying with so many really good questions that address the issues in your community. And now we will have the closing statements, and we'll go in reverse order, starting with Mr. Kafalis, and you have 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and those who are watching. I am Tim Kafalis, and I want your vote. I have been active for many years in Tarpon Springs, and I would like your support and feel I am qualified and unbiased, and I will best represent the voters' wishes on the future of Tarpon Springs. As you read my literature, you will see my experience, my background, and why I am running. I want your vote. I can help to make a great city even greater. Please read my campaign literature and vote for Tim Kafalis for City Commission Seat 3.
Thank you. Mr. DiDonato.
I too would echo, I would like to thank all of you who have put forth this interest and given up your TVs and maybe some of you at your dinners this evening to be here. It's a tremendous value to our community, so thank you. I have a brochure out there as well, and I mentioned some things that we were able to accomplish as a commission when I served prior. I have some ideas that I think are keen for the future, such as the bike trail being added and going down to the beaches. I think that would benefit us, and maybe looking at the Walmart site again as a passive park with some eco-tourism qualities to it. I offered leadership, and I always try to be solution-oriented, not conflict-oriented. And I promise you, if elected, I will continue in that realm. And I just thank you for the honor for being here and being before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alahusas.
Thank you. In closing, let me say that it has been an honor and a privilege to be here tonight to discuss issues facing our city. It's very important that we continue this dialogue. Our residents' input is my most valuable resource, and transparency is also very important to me. This is why I initiated and successfully we created the Budget Advisory Committee to give our citizens the opportunity to provide their input regarding the city budget. I will continue to seek our citizens' input as the mayor of Tarpon Springs. On March 15th, vote for Chris Alahusas for mayor, and thank you for your attention, and thank you for being here. God bless.
Thank you. Mrs. Slattery.
Thank you. I want to thank you all again for being here tonight, and thank the Women League of Voters every year for doing such a great job. We need changes that respect our unique heritage. I love Tarpon Springs, and I want the next generation to love it as much as I do. I've worked to bring together diverse interests and personalities, and I'd like the opportunity to do the same as your commissioner, because when we work together to build our future, we make Tarpon Springs stronger. I'm running for election to the Tarpon Springs City Commission, Seat 3, and I need your vote on March 15th. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to say that I'm not running for anything, and I don't live here, but I love Tarpon Springs. And I congratulate you all on the fine developments that I hear about every time I come to meet with you.